Tension outside early voting sites, fueling fears of confrontations and voter intimidation at the polls.
We need every able-bodied man, woman to join Army for Trump's election security operation.
The Trump campaign calling for thousands to monitor what the president insists is an election rigged against him.
I'm urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully.
It's just important that voters know the truth.
Al Schmidt, a Republican election commissioner in battleground Pennsylvania, who we met in a mock polling place, pushing back at the president's allegations.
There are all sorts of safeguards built in the system.
Rules vary by state, but poll watchers are designated and trained by parties and candidates, one from each side in the room at a time on Election Day here. Where could a poll watcher be in this environment?
A watcher could be back there behind you over there, or over there. They can't be behind the machines.
These people can't be stopping voters and talking to people and raising their hands and making objections.
That's right. They can't stop voters. They can't harass voters. They should approach the judge of elections.
They're in the room all the time.
They're in the room all the time.
Both sides also watching closely outside polling places. At this Philadelphia election site, a Biden poll monitor, different than a poll watcher who's allowed inside, confirms voters had no problems.
I think it's important just to make sure the process is smooth for as many people as possible.
Team Biden says the president's accusations about fraud go too far.
Bad things happen in Philadelphia, bad things.
The president's rhetoric is grossly irresponsible. It is unquestionably a vote suppression tool. It is so outlandish. It is very difficult to imagine that many voters around the country actually take what he has to say seriously.
Team Trump insists it's playing by the rules.
So to your opponents who would say that this army is out to suppress votes, intimidate voters, you would say?
It's a totally false narrative. Why would we want to suppress voters in a state that we won by 44,000 votes? Encouraging people to go into our website and be trained and engage in the proper poll watching process.
Just weeks to go, voters already turning out in historic numbers, hoping it's a free and fair election. Ron Allen, NBC News, Philadelphia.
Happy Halloween, everybody. Today's date, October 31st, 2020, and this is how the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, on how the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before I do get started, we are trying to curb our language a little bit, so there will probably be a cuss word here and there. But some of the stuff we're going to be showing today is going to be a little on the heavy graphic side, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. As you just saw from that video, like I said, it's the final countdown. November 3rd is less than a couple of days away, and we get to see if some people have some common sense and actually get rid of Dorito, or we get to see a lot of people repeat the same mistake back from 2016 and doom us all again for another 4 years. Either way, it's bound to be fun, just in some sense. But we're really guys from that sense of age, like I said before. Again, welcome and thank you for watching. And yes, this is a situation with Dorito, of course, with, as you can see beforehand, that they did go ahead and say they quote unquote train people. Keep in mind they said trained. To be poll watchers. And now, for anybody that's never been around the Jim Crow era, this is pretty much voter suppression. We've never needed poll watchers before. We've had poll monitors there. I mean, when I went to go early voting in my home state of Tennessee, there was a monitor there that just asked me, was everything okay? Was I able to vote just fine and things of that nature? No problem. But again, with Donald Trump and his followers saying you can go to his website and be trained to be a poll watcher, that invites chaos. Because keep in mind, he's already set the rhetoric to sit there and say that he's not going to get a fair election. He's going to say the election is rigged. He's going to say everything to basically muddy the water. So when it comes down to it, this is why I say voting is important. And again, voting, and I'm not, like I said, this show is not about telling you who to vote. It's pretty much informing you, because I already told mine. I said I already know, and anybody who's ever followed this podcast knows that I don't like Dorito anyway, just because he was going to be a shitty president from Jump Street. But again, the whole idea of the voting is to make sure that you can do it happily, safely, and without threats, which, let's be honest, there's only one person out there that's actually going to give threatening oppositions to people that are not voting for them. And let's be honest, it's Dorito. But he did point out something in those comments that about Philadelphia is not an okay, is definitely a dangerous place. Well, unfortunately, we've had another situation, situation in which another black man has lost his life to the police.
Yo, watch my wood. Yo, that go crazy out here. Oh! 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 Oh my God! Oh my God! Bro, they just killed them in front of me. Yo! Yo! Y'all ain't had to give him that many shots. Y'all ain't had to give him that many shots. Yo, what the? Yo! This crazy, cuz. Yo!
Okay, and like I said, I do apologize for the graphic nature of it. But the victim in this one was Walter Wallace, which, as you can see from the story from NBC News, that a call was put in about a domestic violence situation in which someone had reported a man did have a knife. Walter Wallace, as you can see in the video, did have a knife, and as you can see that someone was trying to calm him down. Officers at the time were telling him to drop the knife and things of that nature. And of course, somewhere down the line, they thought it was a good idea to shoot him. Now, for the simple fact of the matter, guys, this is the problem I'm struggling with, because I've always sat there and said that, you know, every shooting has to be a valid justified shooting. And I've had people sit there and say, well, you have a person that has a knife coming at you. I mean, are you shooting to wound, or are you shooting to kill? And most defensive gun training classes will teach someone to kill. Now, with the police, as far as this question, there was also another issue that came up that also concerned me. In another article that I was reading about, that the Philadelphia officers that were shooting Wallace at the time did not have what I like to call non-lethal options. They didn't have mace. They didn't have tasers. All they had was ammunition and a gun. Which again, according to the chief of police in Philadelphia, budget cutbacks were the blame for the reason why these officers don't have non-lethal weapons. And this bothered me just because the simple fact of the matter is just that, wait, so all they had at the time was just heat. And this is the problem that I have with this. It's like, also the family is sitting there saying that Wallace did actually have mental issues, which goes back into what I've been saying about the police and how they should be defunded and how they should be retrained and how they should be equipped. Because it is way too easy, because of the way that, like I said, this is all about optics and perception. Because the perception of the story and how the video shows is how the public will receive it. And initially, some people sit there and say, well, he had a knife, he came with the cops, it looks like suicide by a cop, or he didn't care. But this is why facts are important, just because if he did allegedly have mental issues, that's another one, because people with issues, especially with mental issues, are going to behave erratically. So we can't immediately dismiss the fact that this man decided to come at cops, because, like I said, when you see people on mental issues, there's no way to predict them. They may lash out in anger. They may do things erratically. But at the same time, it's up to officers to determine if the person is a threat or not. But it doesn't give them a blank slate to go ahead and fire just because they can. So as the story is developing, we will be following it more along the lines of with every other story that we've been watching. Do I think this is a righteous shoot? Personally, no. I don't think it is when you take into effect the evidence of everything the officers had. I mean, no offense, there were two of them there, so they easily outnumbered the man. And again, they could have cornered him off to where he wasn't going to be a threat to anyone or anyone else. At the same time, it comes back to what I've been saying, because of me being a gun owner. The one thing that I've learned, the one thing I've been taught is that shooting is the last option. Like if it came down between you and him and you wanted to live more than the other guy, understand, do what you gotta do. But the more I've been the more I watch that video and the more I keep going back to it, it just doesn't scream immediate threat to me. It doesn't. There's just nothing out there that screams immediate threat. And so I don't get why in the world that some individuals think that was completely okay to just go ahead and, for lack of better words, end it. But also what's actually going forward, guys, there's also, like I said, Philadelphia has definitely been a hot spot, not only with the death of Mr. Wallace, but also with this, which again, I thought was crazy because this was happening during the protests.
Wow. Whoa. Whoa. Oh. Damn. They bust up all the windows in that joint. Was there kids in there? Somebody just hopped out with a baby. Come on. They just bust up all the windows. Oh my gosh. I'm shook.
Now, what that was video, again, of the protest in Philadelphia in which the officers had pulled a car to the side and, as you can tell, swarmed the car, busted out the windows, and pulled out what looks to be, of course, from the bystander that was recording this, said it was a baby and arrested the driver. And which also on Facebook, which used to be on Facebook, the Philadelphia Fraternity Order Police had put up there and said that the officers had rescued a child that was lost during the violent riots, which which again was cited as propaganda because the mother the mother that was actually arrested from the car says that the police swarmed her car for no reason. And the fact that they put a picture of her child up there being held by a Philadelphia officer claiming the child has been rescued has been propaganda for the police, in which they're now suing in a civil action suit. Either way, that was disturbing as all get out. That you see, police always talk about that they're always in danger and threats and things of that nature, and yet how soon they swarm a car with a mother and child inside and take the child away and arrest the mom and try to cite that they were doing heroic acts. But again, we shouldn't be surprised by that, considering the level of things that they're allowed to do anyway, because let's be honest, the cops are America's biggest gang. I'll give Tupac credit for saying that at least. But again, this is going to wind up probably being back in the courts just because of the mother. Like, imagine yourself in her shoes. I mean, you're sitting there driving, trying to get away from a protest. The officers tell you to, take this route. You take this route, and then they immediately swarm you, thinking that, oh, well, this child was reported kidnapped or lost or anything of that nature, and you have them, so we're going to take them away from you. Who told y'all that? And again, to have that happen to somebody, again, these are all notes of tragic events that do determine. Like I said, this all goes back to optics again. It all goes back to perception. And this just makes other people look at the police and say, what are you truly protecting? Because you keep on saying you allow peaceful protests, but at the same time, this stuff happens during protests. And that alone just isn't right. But I hate to keep this going, guys. Like I said, there's other stuff I gotta go into as well. If you didn't follow my podcast last week, I did bring up another one in which there was another shooting of a black man in Illinois, and there's some information behind that that's been released.
Video from the night of October 20th showing police questioning Tafara Williams and Marcella Stinnett as they were sitting in their parked car. Police say they were investigating reports of a suspicious vehicle.
What's your first name? For what? You're Marcellus, right? Yeah. For what? Yeah, you're under arrest, man.
The officer says he knows Stinnett and that he's under arrest. Williams drives off. A chase ensues, and moments later, shots are fired. Attorneys for the victims say lethal force was unnecessary.
There is no doubt that the use of force here was excessive. There were constitutional violations across the board here.
The families say all bullets struck the driver's side of the car and there was no damage to the windshield. Evidence they say does not fit with the now fired Waukegan police officer's explanation that he feared for his life because a vehicle was headed at him.
And they just ran me over.
The families maintain the video shows officers didn't render aid quickly after the shooting as Williams was screaming. Stinnett's grandmother overcome after seeing the videos.
We see over and over again in other communities, in other neighborhoods, you show great restraint, you show de-escalation. What is it about young black people that makes police officers want to pull triggers?
Waukegan authorities say they are committed to full transparency in their investigation.
We are all hurting as a result of this incident, and while I intend to allow justice to run its course and not compromise the integrity of the process, I must balance that with my commitment to the families. Our community has always maintained transparency.
And as we cross into the 6 o'clock hour, a few demonstrators remain here at the municipal complex across from the police department, demanding full transparency in this investigation and hoping another such incident like this does not happen again.
And that's what's actually crazy about this. Like I said, I know the title of it, the title of the article as well as the video, you kind of had some questions about that. Where they sat there and said, for some fact of the matter, is just that, again, the officer said he feared for his life when video shows them pulling away from you. If they're pulling away from you and you're walking away, hard to say it's a life-threatening situation, Doc. At the same time, again, like it's important, what they didn't get into in the article, what it actually has in the title, is that the body cam footage didn't turn on until after the shooting. And I have been saying this about officers. Officers should not have the ability to turn on and off their body cams. They should not. If an officer has been found out that his body cam was not on during a crime, or he turned it off, or she turned it off, or if they mess with it in any way, then that means that the crime and then the crime they are involved with for the arrest and things of that nature is null and void. It's almost you really want to make body cams as vital as we want them to make them. Put them in the same level as Miranda rights. For a lot of people that don't know the law, if an officer doesn't read you Miranda rights, any crime they supposedly catch you with is null and void because your rights weren't given to you. There actually is some cases where some people who got caught, some people who actually got caught with multiple crimes actually skated free just because an officer didn't give them their Miranda rights. And that is an actual law. If your rights are not read to you at the time of your arrest, that means your arrest and everything associated with you is null and void. Cannot be used against you. So, the reason why I say that is because officers have a card. Some of them know Miranda rights by heart, some of them don't. Some of them pull out a card and start reading to you. But they always have to make sure that they read it to you, because if they don't, and a judge asks you that your rights read to you, and you say no, and they look at the officer and say, well, did you? And they go, well, I don't know. Then you're free to go. Put that in the same level as body cameras. If a body camera turns on at the beginning of the shift for the officer, and at the same time does not come off until the officer's end of watch, that itself will be the true use of body cams. Because right now, officers can turn them on and turn them off without recourse. And I think that's messed up. I think if you really want to keep officers honest, you should make sure that they never can turn them off. They can never fidget with them. And if they do tamper with them, that should be immediate grounds for dismissal on any case or arrest they're working on. And again, being reprimanded by internal affairs. That's a perfect idea, because what officer can sit there and say, well, it malfunctioned? Really? We can check. And if it's found out that he was lying, then he's off. He can't be trusted. It's just that simple that things like that, if we start implementing those things, would be great. Now, again, will it ever happen? I don't know. Now, like I said, depending on how Tuesday goes, we might have. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys. After Tuesday, after Election Day, I'm not sure what we'll have. I mean, I'm hoping that Dorito has been given his exit papers, and that he is now back to being a citizen instead of a protected one. And I keep thinking that everything that he tried to hold back is finally going to come crashing down on his head. That's just my personal preference. But again, like I said, we don't know. So if you did vote, which I hope you did, that's great. And if you're not voting, if you're waiting until November 3rd, then definitely go ahead and do that, because like I said, lack of voting is what got us here in the first place. Moving right along, guys. Like I said, this is going to be kind of heavy. We're almost out the woods. Almost. There was another situation in Washington, like I said again, where a black man had lost his life due to the hands of law enforcement. Oh, and I thought that was a video. Okay, I'm wrong. I thought that was a video. Let me go ahead and talk about this one. So, Karen Hyten was actually on a moped during the I'm sorry. Let me try this all over again, because that was completely wrong for a segue. So what actually wound up happening was protests have happened in Washington just because of Kyle Horton, a man who was on his moped, was hit by a police car as they were giving chase. Karen Hilton was actually injured and was pronounced dead at the hospital scene. So right now they're actually viewing this to see whether or not that he had really committed, what most things they're trying to do with these stories again. Because he was on a moped, they're trying to sit there and say whether or not that he had basically been involved in a high-speed chase in which officers were chasing another perpetrator. And they're trying to say that he didn't follow the rules because, when cops have their lights on, flashing sirens and everything of that nature, they are always speeding towards somewhere. And of course, the rules of the road is, we have to give them some wide bursts. And really in this case, it's a breaking story. There's really not a lot on it right now, but yes, there are protests happening there because again, it's with the police being in so many stories, it's almost a reason why we keep saying defunding the police, but we'll follow that story as it develops. Other things, like I said before, the one thing I did want to go over, because like I said, it's election season, and I keep hearing this every year. I mean, every election year I keep hearing this. Your votes don't count. Your votes because someone else votes for you. Those electorates or anything of that nature. Okay, well, here's what I want to do. First, I'm going to play this video that actually explains the Electoral College, because this is actually how our voting system works. And then after the video is over, I'm going to explain why we need to get rid of it.
Not vote directly for their president. I'm not talking about a government conspiracy. I'm talking about the Electoral College, a system that has been around since the birth of our nation. What is the Electoral College? The Electoral College is not a building or institution. It's just the name given to a designated group of people who cast each state's official votes for president. This group is made up of 538 people. Each state has a different number of electors based on their representatives in Congress. So, states like California and Texas have more votes than states like North and South Dakota. The only exception? The District of Columbia, which has 3 electors despite not having any voting members in Congress. How does it work? Each party selects their own group of electors. Each state then empowers the electors who represent the candidate who won the most votes, except Nebraska and Maine, who award electors based on a combination of statewide results and districts won. The candidate who receives at least 270 Electoral College votes becomes the next president. What if there's a tie? If there is a tie, or if somebody doesn't get to 270, the House of Representatives appoints the president, and the Senate chooses the vice president. Why does this system exist? In short, the Electoral College was created as a compromise of several different proposals by the nation's founders. Critics say the system allows candidates to become president without necessarily securing a majority of voters' support. Advocates argue it ensures less populated states aren't completely ignored. How are these people selected? The electors are chosen by their political parties in each state. The only rule is that they cannot currently hold office. Can an elector ignore the popular vote? Yes, it's called a faithless elector, but it's rare and it has never affected the outcome of an election. Some states require formal pledges enforced by fines and possible jail time. But historically speaking, members rarely depart from the will of the people.
I feel like it should have been a Schoolhouse Rock moment. I'm just a bill, I'm just a bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. Okay, I might be showing my age on that one. But anyway, that is actually Electoral College, and like I said before, when people sit there and say, well, my vote doesn't matter, it's only because I'm basically voting to tell somebody else to vote for them. And to an extent, they're actually right. But again, the Electoral College, as I've been saying on this podcast and previous ones, for the simple fact of the matter, it's outdated. The Electoral College was really just a compromise between the North and the South. At the same time, it actually took in slavery because, let's be honest, black people are still seen as 3/5 of an actual human being. So, again, the Electoral College was basically it's actually a fear installment system in which smaller states will be overlooked because this is the argument you probably hear a lot. Well, we can't go by the popular vote because if we go by the popular vote, then that means California can pick our next president. No, not at all. Because if you want to be honest, California is a population, let's just say California at one point had the highest population out of any state. Now, if you want to be honest, and a simple Google search will tell you which state has the most people. However, one state by themselves cannot determine the presidency of the United States. Most countries have adapted to a popular vote. I think the United States and maybe 4 countries out there still use some sort of electoral college system. We don't necessarily need it anymore because the electoral college system makes some states more accurate than others, more valuable than others because of the delegate votes. That's why you see a lot of people that's why you see most politicians, when they're on campaign trails, they'll stick to certain states. Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, Texas, California, North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, Georgia, Florida, North Carolina. I'm trying to think of all the I know it's pretty good for memory wise, but I'm trying to think of all the states that have the high delegate counts. Any states with high delegate counts will probably be visited more than any other state that with lower delegate counts. Why? Because like the video says, in order to win the presidency, you need 270 electoral votes. And I'm going to be honest, the one thing that they sat there and said that they feared from the popular vote is exactly what's happening in the Electoral College. A lot of states, especially if they have low count electoral votes, will not get visited as much as a state that does. Why do you think Trump in his last presidential election, it's his last presidential debate, if you can call it that, sat there and said, Ohio, Pennsylvania, you guys should be very worried. He didn't mention those just because of the fact that Biden was shaky on fracking. He mentioned those states because those states have high electoral delegate counts. Again, perception, optics. And that's why I was sitting there saying, for some fact, guys, this is the reason why I say Electoral College needs to be disbanded. We need to just go by the popular vote. If you be honest, if we actually went by the popular vote, Al Gore would have been president. Hillary Clinton would have been president. Barack would have won twice. And honestly, I think I'm thinking of the last 4 or 5 presidencies. The last 4 or 5 presidencies outside of Bush 1, I forgot who ran against Bush 1, the first one. I'll have to come back to that. But those who usually win the popular vote are usually, like I said, mostly Democratic presidents. So again, I should not be surprised by that. But speaking of Dorito, there is another article I didn't want to show because you thought it was bad when you found out Cube was talking to Trump. We shouldn't be surprised that Lil Wayne has been talking to Trump. That's right. The president Dorito at the time, who had everything else in the world going for him, had no problem talking to the little Martian known as the guy who has 3 pieces of Captain D's fish attached to the back of his head, Lil Wayne, who sat there and said, quote unquote, just had a meeting with @real Donald Trump @POTUS. Besides what he's done so far with criminal reform, the Platinum Plan is going to give the community owner real ownership He also said he listened to what we had to say today and assured me he will and can get it done. There's something about Lil Wayne that just, how can I put this in so many ways? I don't really trust Lil Wayne just because, obvious reasons. At the same time, what is it about, again, this goes back to the Platinum Plan. For all those that don't know, Trump's Platinum Plan is basically saying, here's the gift for black people. Pretty much a number of broad initiatives, like he wants to build neighborhoods with the highest policing standards, expanding school choices, improving economic opportunities for black Americans, which sounds like a whole bunch of hodgepodge and nothing aside from that. And again, it also sat there and said that Ice Cube, fuck the police, Ice Cube. Lethal injection, Ice Cube. No Vaseline, Ice Cube. It hurts my heart to say this. It hurts my heart to say this because I have such respect. I still have respect for Ice Cube. I do. And I understand what he was trying to do with his contract with Black America. I understand that he was trying to do that. But again, I have been saying this about Dorito for the longest time. Dorito uses black people as photo ops. He did it with Steve Harvey. He did it with a bunch of black preachers that came up there and tried to sit there and pray for the president. He he sat there and he literally met with the presidents of HBCUs, which again annoyed me because now, I didn't say all HBCUs. Now, all HBCUs did not go to meet the president. A handful actually sat there and did the right thing and didn't go. But again, that hurt my heart to see black men of HBCUs go to a president for federal funding that, like I said before, and I've been saying this every podcast, if someone can show me that a HBCU did receive funding from the Trump administration during this time, please let me know, because everything I've found says, everything I've been researching and finding so far says that no college has received it yet. You've been promised it. They've signed the bill on it. I've yet to see any college sit there and say, yeah, we got funding from Trump. And if you know differently, please tell me. I'd love to know. But again, these are all times where black people have went to this man and, all he did was take a photo op and say, I'm going to take care of you. And the last time I checked, much like his businesses, they all flopped. Tell me I'm wrong. What'd you say, Angela? I don't trust anything that looks like it came out of Gizmo's back because it was fed after midnight. Damn. You ain't wrong. But again, like I said before, with all these rappers coming out, I said, and it was a joke that someone sat there and said, Trump mentions Platinum Plan and all the rappers come out. And last time I checked, I've only heard 2. Now, of course, there are some other celebrities coming out. Brett Favre has came out. Golfing legend Jack Nicklaus has came out and supported Trump and called him the most diverse president ever. And I'm sorry, as a black person, I feel like a white person should never say that another white person is the most diverse character ever. I think that's a problem. It's kind of like having a white person lead a diversity and inclusion meeting at work. Something about that just doesn't sit right with me. But again, all these celebrities are coming out and voting for Trump, and I'm like, look, here's the thing that you guys have to understand. Dave Chappelle said a joke one time during his Netflix specials that was more than a joke. It was actually honesty. He sat there and told one guy, he says, "You voted for Trump, didn't you?" He goes, "Yeah." He says, Do you think Trump's fighting for you?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "That's bullshit. He's not fighting for you. He's fighting for me because I'm rich." And as funny as that joke is, there is some truth to it. Millionaires, billionaires, and close to trillionaires, because they are out there, love a Republican administration. Why? They pay less taxes. They get more on the other end. They get tax breaks. They actually keep money and actually increase their wealth under Republican administrations. You know when rich people don't do well? When there's a Democratic president in office. That's the truth. Rich people have paid more under Obama than they did under Trump. That's the reason why most celebrities right now will happily, well, I'm sorry, most celebrities that actually care about their money are going to happily please Trump. Because again, wealthy people thrive in a Republican administration, but they pay more under a Democratic administration. And the rich will always complain about losing money, but they'll never have to complain about losing anything because they have money. So no surprise there. But speaking of that, as we were switching gears, guys, this was a story that actually came up, and I still can't believe this happened. And I have to give this sister credit for actually having a shitload of resolve.
And I can show you the penal code and everything. It's a hoax.
Viral cell phone video shows how things turned ugly when a Starbucks customer was asked to put her mask on in Santee. ABC 10 News reporter Michael Chen talked to the barista who described the customer's outburst involving politics and race.
Sunday afternoon at a Starbucks on North Magnolia and Santee. 19-year-old barista Alex Beckham says the customer in blue pulled down her Trump 2020 mask to ask a question. Beckham says she asked the customer to put the mask back on, which she did before becoming agitated and taking it off again. That's when another customer says he started recording.
Listen to anything you say when you talk to me like that.
Told her that just to make sure that when if she ever were to come back, to make sure that the store and the customers were protected.
Moments later, the customer serves up a different motive.
No, it's because you're discriminating against me because I'm a Trump supporter. Sure. Black Lives Matter.
If she felt discriminated against because she's a Trump supporter, that's on her. That's not my fault. I never brought any mention of her politics.
Quickly, the customer becoming more upset.
No, it's not a law. It's not a law. And I can show you the penal code and everything. It's a hoax. I don't have to wear a mask. I'm not going to wear a mask. This is America, and I don't have to do what you say. Trump 2020.
You need to leave. Thank you.
No.
Thank you. Have a good one.
The customer isn't quite done yet.
Black Lives Matter.
In Beckham's words, this is her first, quote, crazy Karen experience in 3 years as a barista, but she says she isn't surprised.
I'm from a place that's really conservative, and I've been racially targeted my whole life here. So it's kind of like a normal.
But Beckham says this incident is not okay. She posted it on social media, and it went viral, some 2 million views in a day.
I feel like it's really important to show people that this sort of behavior should not be normalized and should not be acceptable.
Michael Chen, ABC 10 News.
And the church says, try Jesus. Please don't try me, 'cause I throw hands. Oh, number one, I have to give that young woman credit. I have to give her credit because she sat there. And again, this goes to the whole thing, like I said before, of just a mask. It is not that hard to wear a mask. It amazes me so that people will sit there and cite civil freedom, say, I don't have to wear a mask if I don't want to. With the climbing cases of COVID-19, and trust me, they're still climbing. And again, it's the simple fact of the matter is, like, the woman is just working her job. And for these people that sit there and say, I can't go out, I can't have Starbucks, this nature, and then only be told by, ma'am, I'm gonna need you to put your mask back on because, again, we're, COVID-19 situation. And you have these people ready to snap. Why? That's the part that kills me. It's like, well, I don't have to wear a mask. I'm like, it's funny when she goes, well, I don't have to wear a mask. Okay, so let's do a little addition. Let's do a little background here. 9 times out of 10, you walked to a Starbucks that sat there and said that you needed a mask. Number 2, you couldn't even walk into the store and be served unless you had a mask on. And then on top of that, you were told by a worker there that, hey, I know you're asking a question, could you please leave your mask on? So you've made the choice to come in there and get your half foam, half milk, whatever latte you choose to get. You made that decision. So again, for you to sit there and say, well, I don't have to wear my mask, I can show you the penal code. No, because if you didn't wear your mask, you wouldn't be served. Most businesses out there all have that simple saying of, well, we need to have a mask on when you come in for health reasons. Because I can go down the road why most governors and our spineless president have yet to issue a mask mandate, which should have been done anyway, and it should have been done months ago. But again, the whole idea of her citing her personal freedoms were being violated and that she doesn't have to do anything was amazing to me, just because of what exactly? For the simple fact of the matter is just that you're going to sit there and say, above all else, that, hey, that this didn't have to happen, or hey, I can do whatever I want in Trump 2020. You're coming at me because I'm a Trump supporter. Only Trump supporters would sit there and immediately feel attacked. You don't see anybody going, well, you must. And again, Trump supporters, and I say this before, Trump supporters are the only ones that will sit there and they will either attack or act like they've been attacked or triggered. Oh, you're only coming at me because I'm a Trump supporter. All these socialism things. You must be a liberal. Tell me if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong. Because I've never seen a Bernie. There have been some times where I've seen someone say, you must have voted for Trump. And of course, I'm not saying that they turn around and say, you goddamn right I voted for Trump and I'll vote for him again. I've seen that too. But I've always seen more of it come from those radicalized Trump supporters than anything else. But again, I have to give that young woman credit. It also did alarm me a little bit when she sat there and said, the reason I said it didn't bother me as much because I've come from a neighborhood, I've come from a situation or an environment to where I'm, a highly conservative area where I'm highly targeted, and I'm used to it. That didn't sit well with me because I didn't like the fact of how that was. I mean, not the fact of how it was said, but it was the fact of that there are young people like her. Like I said, she's 19 years old. 19 years old, barely, and still a child. And still out there just, the world itself is so much injustice and unfairness and things of that nature, and that she's already desensitized to it. And I'm sorry. Like I said, if I ever become a parent one day and have kids of my own, I can't have them grow up in a society like that. That's why many times I used to say a long time ago, I don't know if I can be a parent in this day and age. I don't know if I can bring a child. I don't know if I can help bring a child into this world and then raise that child with knowing that the world is already going to be against him or her because of the color of their skin. And even more so, the fact of the matter is that they'll never get a fair shake. I used to say that. And sometimes still feel it. I mean, I would be lying if I said sometimes I don't. I still feel like that. But again, like I said before, I want Twitter and social media to do the one thing it always does best. Find out who these people are, give them their identity, and chances are they're going to follow up with being fired from their jobs. So, Twitter, do your thing. So moving right along, guys, there is another story out there about Breonna Taylor. Like I said before, we try to cover all these stories as new information comes out, in which that now, because of a single juror coming out and saying, hey, we were not given all the information from AG Daniel Cameron, other jurors are now coming out and pretty much echoing the same statements. They are pretty much saying that 2 more jurors came out and said that prosecutors were dismissive of their questions, and says that, and quote unquote, there was an uproar when jurors realized Louisville police officers wouldn't be charged with Taylor's death. Now, the grand jurors are still anonymous, did speak and sit there and say that they were not properly heard. They feel like justice wasn't done. They feel like they were not given all the information. And like I've been saying about these types of stories in which that again, the AG controls the case. They control the jurors, they control the evidence, they control the questions, they control the charges. If they want someone convicted, they can get someone convicted. And if they don't want someone convicted, then vice versa. But here's the video on that.
Give us the charges up front. When they gave us all of that testimony over 20-something hours, and then to say that these are the only charges that they're coming up with. It's like, what did we just sit through? And then to be told that we're not charging them with anything else, to me, it was a betrayal.
They said there were other possible charges that we considered, but nothing that we could make stick.
They never gave us the opportunity to deliberate on anything but the charges for Hinkleson. That was it. As a matter of fact, when they announced that those were the only charges, it was an uproar in that room. There was several more charges that could have gone forward on all of those officers, or at least the 3 shooters.
While there are 6 possible homicide charges under Kentucky law, these charges are not applicable to the facts before us because our investigation showed, and the grand jury agreed, that Mattingly and Cosgrove were justified in the return of deadly fire. This justification bars us from pursuing criminal charges in Miss Breonna Taylor's death.
When he stated that there were 6 possible murder charges and that the grand jury had agreed that those didn't apply, the first time I heard the word 6 possible murder charges was in that news conference.
I really felt that. This was all Cameron. This was up to him. We didn't get a choice in that at all. So I was livid. By the time I heard what he was saying, everything that came out of his mouth, I was saying liar, because we didn't agree to anything. We never met Cameron.
Did you find the police credible?
No.
No, there are too many inconsistencies in their story. Now I understand that, in a situation like that, you may not remember, but I didn't find their testimony credible.
It was one mistake right after the other one, right after the other one. They covered it up.
Crazy, isn't it? That it went from now 1 juror to now 2 to now 3. Again, this goes back, like I said, about what's happening in Kentucky. It feels like a cover-up. I mean, like I said before, the AG controls the case, and now the grand jurors are coming out and saying, we never got that option. We never were told about this. We never were told about that. And the simple fact that they had issues with the recount of the officers. Excuse me. And again, this is the reason why I'm sitting there saying that there is so much more to that story, aside from the fact that there needs to be a proper investigation. And if it's found out that the AG, the police are all into it, then they should all be brought up on charges. Because again, there should be justice for this. There is no reason why there is not justice for this. Just from a simple standpoint, there's just so much there that just needs to be addressed and answered. But also at the same time, like I said before, I've been saying it since Mr. Cameron's initial conference that yeah, they're covering up. But then again, I've always sat there and said, excuse me, that with qualified immunity, it needs to go anyway, because police have way too much leeway when it comes to giving their own statements, because the people that they arrest don't get that same level. They don't get that same level of treatment. They have to answer questions that very same night. And I will still argue this every day, because I've had people come to me and say, the reason why is because you have all the adrenaline going through your system. It might alter things. You might not see straight and things of that nature. So they want to give you time to calm down, recollect, and then come back and then be able to give your statement. I said, okay. Is the same thing done for the arrested? Quiet. Now, ask yourself, why is it quiet? Simply put, because I asked the question, I said, if that same type of treatment is done to a law enforcement officer, is that same treatment handed to a person they arrested? Because last time I checked, the person they arrested is brought up, is filed and fingerprinted on the same day. They are questioned or interrogated on the same day. And just going from there. I don't see them saying, let me get time to understand. Let me give time to process what's going on. I knew I was just arrested, but give me time to process this. Let me get my adrenaline down. Let me go ahead and do all these things. And then when I'm recollecting everything, I'll come to you and we'll be able to talk about it. No. Because they don't get that same leeway. That's qualified immunity, and that's one of the things that need to stop. Especially since they're giving so much leeway to the shooter and very less leeway to the victim and the arrestee. I'm just saying that's the reason why it needs, one of the many reasons why it needs to stop anyway. But a little tidbit about Kyle Rittenhouse, the guy that decided to go up during the protest in Wisconsin, and I'm sorry, the one that was in Kenosha, and decided to go up and protest with an AR, which is into a city that he didn't live in because his mom drove him up there with an assault rifle, and that he shot and killed 3 people. He is being extradited to Wisconsin because the lawyers try to sit there and say that allowing this extradition was to the such of their safety of their client to where hearings can be brought up in Wisconsin. Let me get this straight. The safety of their client can be brought up in hearings in Washington. The safety of their client. Keep in mind, like I said before, this was a guy who had his mom drive him over to where the protest is to where he can defend a business that wasn't his with a gun. Again, that he was illegally not allowed to have in that state. But you're going to fear for his life. Now, I just think it's kind of funny where they sit there. I think it's kind of funny where these shooters come up here acting like Billy Badass, or would-be fake-ass army, and shoot and kill people, and now he has to have protection. Trust me, if he's in a jail, if he's sitting in jail, he's sitting by himself in isolation. Because he's not sitting with general population. Because the general population ever got a hold of the boy, he ain't making it to trial. So you can already tell he's protected. But the fact of expediting him to Wisconsin again makes no sense because, again, this goes back to what like I said, the idea of just you're trying to basically do optics, and I think that is messed up. I think it won't work. But he is going to get his day in court, and again, if the charge he's facing, he could be facing life in prison, which he should, simply put, because he gave up that right once he ended someone else's life. Also, moving right along, guys, before we wind down, this was actually an interesting story, which I wanted to bring up, was the fact that Oregon may be the first U.S. state in history to decriminalize hard drugs. What I mean by hard drugs, I mean heroin, cocaine, LSD, angel dust, smack, booger sugar, white girl. You know the names. But anyway, in Salem, Oregon, they actually are putting out a measure for their citizens to vote on. The measure is called Measure 110, and it would drastically change how charges are held against hard drugs. Which in this case, this is kind of similar to what Biden was saying about opening drug courts and things of that nature, where they sat there and said that if an individual had small amounts of heroin, cocaine, LSD, all that stuff, they would actually not go to jail for maximum sentences. They would actually go to drug courts, in which those individuals would be put into drug programs, as well as facilities that would actually assist them as far as getting past the habit. I think it's interesting because this actually does deter away from the idea of, the war on drugs and things of that nature, and that fact if you're caught like Escobar for Narcos and you caught with a ton of this shit, that you'll never see another day out. I'll never see a day outside bars. I think this is a good step. I think this is a good step just because, again, like I said, this is a measure. It's not officially law yet. So I will be interested to see what happens on Tuesday election with the state of Oregon, that they could be the first state to decriminalize hard drugs. And like I said before, major drug use as far as this is a problem. Now, do I think that, for a lot of this stuff, marijuana should be nationwide decriminalization, and the fact that all those that were actually, arrested or jailed on marijuana charges should be released? I think so. I think children should have their records expunged. That's just me. Because marijuana has never led to a death. Now, heroin, cocaine, and LSD and other drugs, however, yeah, they got some track records. But if they're caught, if people that have possession of those small amounts need actual assistance and not jail time, then I think this is a great deterrent from that. And like I said, we're trying to decrease prison population, because if there's one thing America's number one in, it's definitely prison incarceration. But again, we'll find that out come Tuesday. Also, guys, the last story I got is a little bit of an interesting one, and I just thought it was pretty cool to share this one just because it's going to matter. And why it's going to matter is the next video after this one.
This involves foster care in the city of Philadelphia and whether a Catholic social services agency can be denied a contract for child placement because of its refusal to work with same-sex couples. Our Devin Dwyer went to Philadelphia for a closer look at this dispute and the children caught in the middle.
For nearly 30 years, Sharon L. Fulton has opened her Philadelphia home to dozens of the city's most vulnerable children.
I have room in my house and time in my life, and I want to make a difference.
The Catholic mother of 3 has been a foster mother to more than 40, her kids coming from families often broken by drugs and abuse.
You make them a pie, you kiss them, you tell them it's going to be all right. And that's how I do it.
In 2018, Fulton's work as a foster parent for Catholic Social Services was abruptly put on hold after the city froze its contract with the agency over its refusal to work with same-sex couples.
I was devastated. I just couldn't believe it. Catholic Social Service does wonderful work, and we have children that hurt, and we need the service.
Philadelphia, in a push to recruit more foster families, made clear that discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation was forbidden under city contracts. Deputy Mayor Cynthia Figuera, herself a Catholic, told Catholic Social Services it could no longer refuse gay and lesbian parents and continue receiving taxpayer funds.
This is a voluntary contract. We don't hold any provider to commit to having to sign if they don't want to adhere to the contract language. So to the city, it's pretty straightforward. You've entered into a contract that says very explicitly that you are to serve all and any, and that's neutrally applied to all providers.
The agency and Catholic foster parent Sharon L. Fulton sued the city, alleging they were targeted for their religious beliefs in violation of the First Amendment. Lower federal courts rejected those claims, but now the U.S. Supreme Court will decide whether the city went too far.
There had been no complaints against Catholic Social Services, and no same-sex couple had ever approached them, but if one did, they would help them to find an agency who could serve that family and help them on their foster care journey.
Of the 24 private agencies in Philadelphia's foster care network, Catholic Social Services is the only one that says it would deny applications from same-sex couples as a matter of faith.
Even because there's other organizations doesn't mean that one should be allowed to discriminate against a particular community.
Why freeze them out at a time when you have so much need?
There's LGBTQ youth in the system, and I think it sends a very strong message to them that they're supported and protected as children, but as adults their right would be discriminated against.
Caught in the middle are at-risk Philadelphia children and teens. There are currently 4,300 kids in the city's resource homes, including nearly 1,900 with foster families. About 300 children are in group facilities awaiting placement.
We have kids dying in the street every single day. Multiple. And you want to fight about who can foster a child? My God, let's get past that.
Retired cop Kevin Bernard and his wife Patty recently became foster parents for the first time, taking in a 5-month-old baby girl from a family with close ties to their church.
We don't really know what the outcome's going to be. We don't know if she's going to be with us for 2 years, for a year and a half, forever. We don't know what's going to happen.
What's it take to be a good foster parent?
I would say, have love and patience. There's such a need for people that have a heart to help the children to be involved in the system.
Was that a difficult?
Paige and Shannon Davis have been sharing their love with Philadelphia foster kids for 7 years, taking in 10 children and teens while raising a son of their own.
We don't call them foster kids. They're our kids. As soon as they come to our home, they're kids. They're our kids.
The Davises say having same-sex parents in the foster system is critical. Studies show LGBT young people are disproportionately in need of foster care, and that many who were removed or ran away from foster placements did so because of a caregiver's hostility toward their sexual orientation or gender identity.
We could have been that intermediate between a child transitioning into their adulthood and into their own identity and show them that it's safe. We wanted to be there for those children in order to do that. I'm not a lawyer, but I say this. Catholic Services, they signed a contract. The contract specifically states that you're going to include all type of families.
But after nearly 200 years of Catholic Social Services working with children and families in Philly, some wonder whether the move to cut ties over their beliefs on homosexuality is fair and constitutional.
Freedom is both sides. There's two sides of freedom, right? And this country was founded on religious freedom. And as such, you should be able to help where you can help and still practice your faith. And so if the church wants to help, but they can't do it in another area, then there should be somebody that can help those people also do that.
I grew up Catholic. My wife grew up Christian. We still go to church on Sundays. We take our son. We're a member, part of our Catholic community here in Philadelphia. However, everyone is entitled to their beliefs. However, this is about the children. This is not about what we do behind closed doors. So for you to add or eliminate families based on them being same-sex is eliminating a potential loving home for a child.
Yes.
With her case before the Supreme Court, Sharon L. Fulton awaits a decision at her now quiet North Philly home. The trees her foster children planted still blooming as a source of hope.
If Catholic Social Services loses the case and the city's rules are upheld, would you continue fostering with another agency?
No, I would not, because at this age and in my life, I don't want to start all over again with somebody else's rules and regulations who don't respect my religious values. And I believe in that, what I'm saying. So no, it would be difficult for me.
For AB.
Okay, so yes, it was a long video. I do apologize for that. But the story itself, just some problems I have with that. Number one, this nation was not founded on religious views. It was basically founded on individual freedoms and the right to choose whatever you want to do without religion, without actual prosecution from a monarchy. So no, despite what education has probably failed to teach you, that no, this nation was not founded on a Christian nation. This nation was not founded on religious values. It was founded on the freedom to choose. That's how the founding fathers wanted it. Number two, again, with Catholic foundations, and like I said, I've known this for a fact, that I guess they have something, and I always love this. This is the thing about, this is honestly the thing about religion that it just rubs me the wrong way. It does. It rubs me the wrong way just because it's amazing how many people will quickly sit there and say, well, it's not me, it's my religion. This robotic indoctrination amazes me sometimes, where again, Catholic adoption agencies, and they're not the only ones, they're just the biggest ones out there, will sit there and say, well, we're being prosecuted because of our faith. You're taking federal funds to basically keep adoption centers and things going, but you still want it your way. Even though federal funding and the stipulations that come with that say you can't discriminate against anyone, and I mean anyone, and yet you have people out there saying, "Oh, it's against my religion." You know what this is? I'm like, I hate saying, well, people say, well, this is just like the baker and the gay couple. No, because I was on the side of the baker. The baker could decide who to make cakes for and who don't. But Business 101 will sit there and tell you that it is pretty much business suicide to turn away money. I mean, like I said before, if I was a baker and there was a guy that came in there who didn't agree with my views, wanted me to bake a cake, guess what? I don't care about his views. What kind of cake you want? I'm out to get his money. Money, I said, business should not have a moral vacuum to a certain extent. But again, whether it's a same-sex couple, married, a heterosexual couple, whatever cake they want, and if I'm the baker, I'm making it because I want to keep my doors open. I like being my own boss. That alone should be motivation in itself. Now, what does that got to do with Philly foster care and the Catholics right now fighting this? Catholics themselves are pretty much beating their chest saying we're being prosecuted. No, you're not. Christians will sit there and say, there's a lot of Christians, pretty much those that watch Fox News, will sit there and say that they're being prosecuted. No, you're not. You're not being prosecuted. If you're taking federal funds, that means that it does come with a contract, which is kind of funny where, when you tell people, like, hey, if you're going to be a foster mom, and the services you're working for, take federal funding, then they understood that once they took this money and that, let's just say, a same-sex couple came up and said, we would like to adopt said person, you can't get mad because you accepted the rules and regulations that came with it. But you're going to cite religious prosecution. That's the thing that just kills me about this whole thing. That it's not religious. If anything we should learn from religion, you should actually start thinking instead of just saying, well, it's against my religion. But here's the other problem of this here's the other problem of this that's actually effing scary. And I keep saying this the entire time because there's one little story that you heard about this, one little part in that story where it sat there and said that the case is going to be heard by the United States Supreme Court. Here's the problem why it's scary.
Amy Coney Barrett, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I take this obligation freely,
that I take this obligation freely,
without any mental reservation,
without any mental reservation,
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that's the reason why you should be worried. Amy Coney Barrett, as you can see, was confirmed by the Senate as railroaded, just as Kavanaugh once was, days before an election, because let's be honest, the Republicans had to have one more on there to have a fully conservative-leaning Supreme Court. And now that woman, who I like to call her the female version of Anthony Scalia, is now on the Supreme Court. Now, you just heard me sit there and say that a case was going up to the now Supreme Court in which Catholics are citing religious prosecution against federal funding that will be pulled because they didn't actually adhere to the rules. And now you have exactly a Republican's wet dream sitting on Congress. Not only sitting on Congress, but sitting in the Supreme Court. And that should be very effing scary. It should be. Because again, that's not the only case that's going up to the Supreme Court. There's also a case of abortion going up to the Supreme Court, which means Roe versus Wade could be challenged now. And like I said, a Supreme Court can rule in case of former case rulings. They can also rule against it and actually introduce a new initiative. Which again, I don't know why, but it always seems to be conservatives. Conservatives love going after women's bodies. I don't know why. I could not tell you. I just think that it's some sort of oppression that they just can't get rid of. It's almost like Medicare. Republicans want to get their hands on Medicare just as much as they want to get their hands on women's bodies. And now they actually have someone in place that can actually turn the tide in their favor to where it might just actually get done. And again, this is why I wish Biden and Kamala Harris would have sat there and said, oh, so you guys want to go ahead and, y'all want to throw one more in there as after the hypocrisy that you gave President Obama, and you did not give him a Supreme Court justice pick. You gave Trump not one but not two, and you got this one in right before the election, which again, you couldn't even get a stimulus package in, but you made sure to get that person in. And that alone should be saying a lot. And like I said before, keep this all in mind as you go to the polls if you hadn't already voted, because, again, the next 4 years is going to be crucial. The only thing I'm going to sit there and say on this whole point is that don't just sit there and not vote. I mean, you have the ability, you have the time. Please vote and actually make a difference in that nature. Because as you see right now, like I said about Biden and Harris, Biden and Kamala Harris, you both need to sit and say, yeah, we'll pack the Supreme Court. We will. We will ramrod I'm like, what you've done, I'll be looking at the Republicans if I was them. What you've done to us in 4 years, we will do to you in kind. We will ram every Supreme Court pick we can down your throats and get them nominated. We will turn around and undo every policy that Dorito has put in and has failed. We will undo so much stuff. Like I said before, this is what President Obama had to do with Bush 2.0. He had to go back and undo a full. It took his 8 years to undo Bush's 8 years, and now Biden Harris will probably spend 8 years undoing what Trump did in 4. So, again, I shouldn't be surprised by that. So, moving right along, guys, we're going to go ahead and go to our feel-good segment. Like I said before on How the Frack We Got Here, we do go through a lot of news. Sometimes that news is doom and gloom. Sometimes that news is just bad. Like I said, it's the weekend. It's Halloween. Hopefully, if you're doing trick-or-treating, please be safe and do the social distance thing. And if you're having parties, try to keep the numbers down. Like I said, always keep the candy wrapped and things of that nature. Because, trick-or-treating, it's all about candy and sugar rushes. And if you're like me, you're just waiting for November 1st because all the Halloween candy is going to be half price off in most places. But again, with that being said, guys, I do have 3 stories that I do want to show that hopefully will inspire you guys. And the first one, I like this one because this kid is going places.
Deliver? I think I can. Let's try. Kids spend a lot of time wondering what they can be when they grow up. So if they need some inspiration, they should listen to 6-year-old Sam and his career rap.
This is good.
You can be an A, you can be an architect, sketch a building to kiss the sky. You can be a B, you can be a biochemist, make medicine, save lives. You can be a C, computer or software developer, with programs and systems and files. You can be a D, you can be a dentist, cause everybody loves to smile. You can be an E, you can be an engineer, solve problems of all kinds. Chemical, electrical, use the power of your mind.
Wow. All right, Sam's got a job for every single letter of the alphabet. You know who loves this even more than we do? Teachers. They're actually leaving messages asking him online if he can share his career rap with their students.
I hope a T is for teachers. Yeah. That is so cute.
I watched this entire video yesterday on the internet. It's worth watching the whole thing. Dad in the background, beatboxing, makes it.
He's awesome. Wow.
All right, guys, we got our news covered. Are you ready?
Actually, I gotta find that whole video. I thought they would play the whole thing. I actually loved it, and dang it, now I'm gonna go find it. That's gonna bug me that that's not showing any. It's not showing anything. Hey, give me 1 second, because I gotta play the whole thing, because that to me was cool. And let's see if I can find it, because I'm sorry, that boy deserves the whole thing to be played personally. Dang it, where is it? Because now I'm gonna play it. Y'all see, this is the reason why sometimes I need to start checking videos before I start playing stuff, because again, like I said before, I thought it was cool. Let's see if this plays. Hang on a second.
You ready, Sam?
Yeah.
When you tell everybody what they can be when they grow up, they can be anything. You ready?
Yes.
Let's go.
You can be an A, you can be an architect, sketch a building to kiss the sky. You can be a B, you can be a biochemist, make medicine, save lives. You can be a C, computer or software developer, with programs and systems and files. You can be a D, you can be a dentist, cause everybody loves to smile. You can be an E, you can be an engineer, solve problems of all kinds. Chemical, electrical, use the power of your mind. You can be an F, you can be a firefighter, fight fires in red trucks. You can be a G, gastroenterologist, deal with problems in the gut. You can be an H, hospital administrator, hospitals need leaders. You can be an I, intelligence officer, the FBI kind of people. You can be a J, you can be a judge, help people who seek justice. You can be a K, kindergarten teacher. Those kids are young and restless. You can be an L, you can be a lawyer, cause people need to know their rights. You can be an M, mobile app developer, like the people that made Fortnite. You can be an N, you can be a nurse, medical kit for the masses. You can be an O, optometrist, for people that need eyeglasses. You can be a P, paramedic, for medical emergencies. You can be a Q, quantum physicist, like particles and energy. You can be an R, researcher, find cures for disease. You can be an S, stockbroker, you get to work with money. You can be a T, truck mechanic, trucks are critical transportation. You can be a U, university president, more the future of your nation. You can be a V, video game designer, or Xbox It's an online occupation. Now take that S. You can be your own boss with impact on the world. And with that Y, you can be your own boss. Tell me, boy and girl. And with that Z, Z's we strive. You can really start if you try. Just don't be a Z. Just don't be a zombie. And let the world pass you by.
I don't care what y'all say. That was cute. I like that. Like I said before, the fact that that kid was rapping jobs through his ABCs was so freaking cool to me. At the same time, you can see his dad just brimming with joy back there. And I keep on saying, if these are the kids that are coming out, you know what? We gonna be all right. We gonna be all right for the next generation. I'll be honest. I used to sit there and say I used to fear the next generation, but you see kids do stuff like that, it's like, you know what? We gonna be all right. Even more so that this kid, which again, I did cover this kid when he first had a hot dog stand, and the reason why of course he had a hot dog stand, and someone called the police on him, and then the police came out and, they didn't cite him for anything. They actually helped him get a business license, and actually bought from his stand. That very same kid is now a teenager, and he coming up in the world.
His struggle right now. A teen entrepreneur is not letting that stop him from making his dreams come true. 3 years after starting his own hot dog cart, 14-year-old Mason Wright has now opened his own restaurant. And we are lucky to have Mason join me now from Mason's Super Dogs there in Stonecrest, Georgia. Mason, good morning and congratulations.
Thank you so much, and good morning to you too.
Thanks. So what inspired you to start your own business in the first place, let alone now?
What inspired me to start my own business is when I was walking in the grocery stores and I was asking for jobs, and they all told me no, I was too young. So I told myself I could be my own businessman and have my own job. And that's when I started walking dogs, washing cars, and mowing lawns. Then a few years later, I went on a trip to New York City. I waited in a line to get a hot dog. Then when I came back from New York, I told myself I could take the business concept back to Atlanta, and I did. I started with a little red cart, then I worked my way up to a New York-style cart. Now, since COVID-19 hit, I have a restaurant.
And what's that been like to go from the hot dog cart to a full-fledged restaurant?
It's been amazing. Business is booming. The customers are very, very supportive. They've been so patient, and they've been so wonderful. I thank them all every time they leave.
And Mason, what's your favorite part about being a business owner?
Personally, my favorite part about being a business owner is counting all the money after hours.
I think we can all understand that part. And of course, it's not easy, though. So what's the most challenging part?
The most challenging part would be, I would say, would be stocking up the fridge, because those hot dogs do get heavy.
How do you make your decisions every day? How do you decide what you want to order, how much to get? There's a lot that goes into being a business owner.
How I decide is that we have a system that we already thought about a long time ago, and we just follow that system each and every time.
What's your future vision for Mason's Super Dogs and for yourself, Mason?
I see myself walking into a Mesa Super Dogs on every corner.
All right.
Like McDonald's.
And what's your advice to others who may want to follow in your footsteps, Mason? They may be watching you right now thinking, hey, maybe I can do that.
I would tell them, do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
And finally, Mason, my big important question of the day. What's the craziest hot dog you would make me if I could come right now and sit down with you and enjoy?
It would be the Professor Deli with any other toppings you would like on it.
Any toppings I like? What are some of my options?
You have chopped chicken, you have shredded steak, you have lettuce, you have chile sauce, and you also have the choice of having a vegan hot dog or a beef hot dog.
You are catering to all customers. Mason, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you are very busy, so
I like that kid. I mean, that makes me smile. That I love seeing young black entrepreneurs. And the simple fact of the matter is, I love that he shot his shot. He sat there and said, "I want to see a Mason Super hot dogs in every corner, like McDonald's." I was like, respect. He sat there and told McDonald's, "I'm coming for you." He really did. I like the simple fact, like I said, I like seeing that. I like seeing. And yes, I'm going to be partial. I like seeing young black people, opening businesses at a time where you don't think you can open one. Or, at 14 years old, this kid has a business. And if there's anything you can say, whether you're 14 or 44 or 66, it's never too late. Especially when you have that much drive as a 14-year-old, he gonna be all right. He is gonna be all right. And like I said, if I ever go through Stonecrest, Georgia, I will be looking specifically for that Mason Super Dogs, just because I want to support it. But again, I just thought that was a cool story itself, just to see, I guess, young black people actually really taking stats as their own. And simply he said the simple fact of the matter was he was looking for a job, and every other place said he was too young, and then he decided, 14 years old, I'm going to be my own boss. That to me, that's drive. That's drive, and like I said, kudos to him and his parents. That's all I can sit there and say about that. All right, so the last story I got, guys, like I said before, it's kind of it's interesting, and at the same time, NASCAR, be afraid. The last Bastille of white-only sports is about to fall.
Were you cool with a capital C? For the first time, we are getting a look at the new race car for the Michael Jordan-owned NASCAR team called 2311 Racing, ahead of its debut on the track next year. The NBA legend announced the formation of the new team last month alongside co-owner and current NASCAR driver, superstar Denny Hamlin. Also this morning, Toyota is unveiling its partnership with the team. Bubba Wallace will take the wheel of the new car. It's pretty, pairing NASCAR's only full-time black driver and its only black principal team owner. Bubba Wallace and Denny Hamlin are at the Charlotte Motor Speedway for an interview that you'll see first on CBS This Morning. Bubba, welcome back to CBS This Morning. Denny, it's really good to see you.
Yeah, good morning.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bubba, let's start with you. It's a new chapter in your life. Congrats on that, and you're making history, too. Can you share with us how you're feeling and how you're processing it all?
Yeah, I'm still processing it every day. This is an exciting opportunity. It's been put in front of me that I have to capitalize on, being a part of a team with Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin. 2311 partnership with Toyota. It's coming together quite nice, and next year can't get here soon enough. So just excited for the opportunity. That's the biggest thing. Just got to make sure I do my part, deliver each and every time out next year.
I know, Bubba, aren't we all ready for 2020 to be OVA, O-V-A-H? Come on, 2021.
Yes.
Denny, so I know you and Michael Jordan are longtime friends. How did this come about? Did he call you, you call him and say, hey, I got an idea? What happened?
Yeah, it was somewhat by accident, but I think there were some rumors floating around about me and him starting or being a part of a team to begin with, and he obviously said, fake news, but if you want to make a real news, let me know. So it was just one of those things where I was kind of, well, wait a minute, let's have a chat. And so I flew down to Florida to meet with him within a couple days. And we just went through that whole process, vetting process, over the next 10 days to 14 days to make sure we had everything in line, that we could get it done. And obviously, once we did, things started moving pretty quickly. So it was great that, obviously our friendship turned into a partnership with him, with the whole Jordan brand sponsoring me and Michael Jordan. But then, turning it into a NASCAR ownership now is obviously historic.
And then did you say, you know who we should call? Bubba Wallace?
There's no doubt from my mind. I believe that Bubba's outperformed, the equipment that he's had week in, week out. There's been many times I've been passed on restarts. I'm like, I should not be running right here. And he's just, he's getting the most out of it. So I think this is a great opportunity for him.
Okay, it does run a little bit long, but I just want to show that part because yes, for all those that didn't know, that Danny Hamlin Jordan did actually start the 2311 racing team with Bubba Wallace will be driving next year. And like I said before, when it comes down to it, guys, NASCAR fans, it's like I said this day was coming. I said, just like I said, these last bastions of Caucasian sports. Are about to be invaded, and I keep saying that. Look, I didn't actually know that NASCAR actually had a diet. And get the one thing about NASCAR, even though the stigma is that it's pretty much white culture, rednecks, and beer, they actually have a diversity racing initiation in Florida in which that you can come and try out, and that if you're of course if you're diverse, which means that you're not white, you can come out and actually race and actually be tested on track trials. And if racing teams see what they like, of course they'll bring you on, which I did not know NASCAR still does that. I mean, for me, I just couldn't. For me, it's like, yeah, NASCAR, Daytona 500, Indianapolis 200. I'm still trying to figure out how is it really racing. Excuse me. I'm trying to figure out how is it really racing if you're doing left turns for 500 times. I mean, personally for me, I'd rather be like in drift or Formula One, something a little bit more, because I like Formula One. I got into Formula One racing. I thought that was the coolest thing ever to go dang near 220, 240 and, barely make the edge, things of that nature. But, MotoGP and things of that nature is kind of my thing. But I want to support it just because the fact of the matter is we are seeing more and more representation in these areas. And let's be honest, how could you not like a man named Bubba? Seriously, how can you not like a man named Bubba? But anyway, that's really all the stories that we got, guys. So I do thank everybody that watched in, peeked their heads in, things of that nature. I know we kind of got off to a slow start. I simply apologize for that. But I do thank all of you guys for sticking around with me and, of course, sharing the podcast, things of that nature. I cannot say that enough, how much I dig that, how much I appreciate that, and that it does keep me going because, like I said, my whole idea of all this is to basically inform and to really just give people a voice and let them go from there. But before I do get out of here, I do have some shameless plugging that I do need to get out of here first. Need to get out the way first. I'll start with my buddy Vaughn, who's probably sleeping and hopefully he's working. Hopefully you're resting yourself, man. But I'll start with Vaughn. Big BZA Dot on Facebook has a couple of podcasts of his own. The first one is called the VSTs, or the Intercast, let's call it. It can be a news podcast. That news can be music, video games, or music, as he loves to show. Interactive trailer just like mine. As you can tell, you can see from his Facebook page, he's also enjoying Lovecraft Country, which, again, I had to kind of troll him on because he just started it, and I'm sorry, that was wrong. But again, like I said, the VSTs, like I said, informational podcast. He also has Rhythmness, where you can reminisce over the rhythm, which right now we're kind of trying to get together back on that to where we can all get together, because Rhythmness is pretty much a bunch of us listening to new music and really just going a grade tier system with it. If you've heard me and Vaughn talk about Rhythmness before, we are kind of on opposite ends of the musical spectrum. That's fine. But differences in taste lead to great conversation, and that's what Rhythmness is all about. He also has Random as Fuck with Uncle VZ. What is Random as Fuck? It's the pool of ranches we sometimes dip our toes into to take a break from life and have a chuckle. Some bills make you think, some bills make you cry, some bills will just stick with you, but they're always to a theme. Like this one right here where he says love is evil. And if you know Christopher Titus, yes, that's where he got the reference from. But again, all the videos that he does have can be found under his Facebook at BigBZA. And he also has another show called Funkin' Around. What is Funkin' Around? Funkin' Around is basically, as I said before about Vaughn, he is a musical creative genius. He likes to tickle the keys, as you can see from his equipment right there. But he also is a beat maker, and he also loves to show the creation of how he comes up with those beats. And that's what Funkin' Around is about, because I think Vaughn may be getting back into the pool of making beats, and hopefully that he will. But I would love when he shows his creative process from beginning to end. But all of his shows can be found under his Facebook page, again, at BigBZA. And of course, BigBZA on all social medias. My other brother, Thomas Reed, aka the Mountain Puncher, also has Also on his Facebook and his YouTube page at 2TBD has a podcast called To Be Determined, which I'm not sure. I was hoping to see if I did see his Q&A, but his podcast is really more of a Q&A segment sometimes in which he talks about fitness. And as you can see from his videos down here, all the man does is literally and figuratively work out. Which is no fault in that, but he does it 7 days a week. I'm almost certain he's probably at the gym right now on Saturday, still working out. But he loves fitness, loves to talk about fitness, and wants to be able to do the same thing with others who are trying to reach their best in physical and mental attributes. So he usually does a show every Thursday from after his gym, if he reminds himself to do that. But definitely look him up, Thomas Reed, on Facebook, or his YouTube page at 2TBD to see previous episodes of To Be Determined in which the results are depending upon you. Especially if the fact of the matter is you want to be able to do stuff like this. Now, most people will sit there and wonder what he's doing. He's trying to work his entire body in one shot, which again, that's just him. Especially, and also, he also has another thing, and I'm going to bring this up too if I can find it, because I know he posts all the time. When you can do stuff like this is what I call the ridiculous. When you can do stuff like this. Keep in mind, those are two 35-pound kettlebells, and he is balancing on them and then goes into a squat. Now, it is pretty freaking impressive. Do not get me wrong about this. But I just find it interesting that he goes into a squat and then twists. Twists for no reason. Well, he is twisting for a reason. He's twisting to get that ab incision that he wants so bad. But he twists and holds it. That's a minute of recording the video, and he holds it. That alone should tell you off the bat that this man is definitely about his fitness. But again, that's just Thomas. Like I said before, you can definitely catch him on his YouTube page at Thomas Reed, or his Facebook, his Facebook page at Thomas Reed, his YouTube page at 2TBD. As for yours truly, I do a few podcasts of my own. Every Tuesday from 7 to 9 p.m. is the Burned Out Podcast, in which I tell stories from my IT background about the interesting people. Like I said before, it's more of a therapeutic thing for me to talk about, the special people or just the many things that I deal with in IT. And if you find it funny, then it's great. And if not, then chances are I'm talking about you need to lighten up anyway. Of course, every Saturday, as you can see from 10 a.m. to noon, is the How the Frack We Got Here podcast. Usually every Saturday night between 8 and 10 p.m., there will be another podcast, the Off Limits podcast, which nothing is off limits. But due to other primary engagements, there will not be one tonight. We will come back next Saturday with a brand new podcast in which I do have a subject for that I think is going to be interesting that I wanted people to engage on. Because of Off Limits, we do talk about things that nobody wants to talk about. We do go to the areas that most people would find uncomfortable or just don't want to talk about. I think that we shouldn't avoid them. We should really have a dialogue, and that's how we move forward. That's what Off Limits podcast is all about. And of course, every Sunday from 7 to 9 p.m. is the Get Bit podcast. That is GITBIT, which is a blurred podcast that covers video games, that covers anime, that covers comics, that covers television, that covers movies, even sports such as wrestling, because Yvonne had that, because I still watch wrestling and it's still real to me. But we talk about all that and all that and more on Get Bit every Sunday. So all of my shows have their own Facebook or YouTube podcasts, or on Facebook or on YouTube. You can look them up by their names: the Burned Out Podcast, How the Frack We Got Here, the Off Limits Podcast, and Get Bit, that is GITBIT, to see every podcast that I've done thus far. And of course, you can also catch all of my shows on my Facebook page at William Buchanan. So with that being said, guys, I will say this: COVID-19 is still out there. Please be safe. Please wear a mask. Please actually do the things and don't be on Broadway just for no reason at all. It is just that freaking simple. We've tried the other way. We've tried your personal freedoms. We tried everything else in the sun to make it work. It did not work. Now it's time to do things the right way and actually have these cases that are forever climbing up to finally go down. And also, if you see a nurse, a doctor, or nurse's aide, doctor's aide, environmental services people that work in the hospitals, simply say thank you. because they do a lot. They risk their own lives to keep people and keep sick people well and trying to help people nurse them back to health at risk of themselves and actually possibly expend it to their families. They don't get enough done for them, and I know for more people, I know more should be done for them. But at least from our standpoint, you should be able to say thank you. And guys, I know I'm going to keep saying this because it hasn't happened yet, but I'm just going to go and cover my bases. Yes, I know there are some thick and curvy women, and I know scrubs will fulfill whatever twisted fantasy you have. Don't be a dick. Simply say thank you. Same way with women going to doctors. Don't be that person. Just say thank you. And aside from that, thank also the essential worker if you see them, and be nicer to them, because a lot of people who are essential workers are having to go out and make decisions to basically go work because they still got to keep the lights on stuff for their homes. I'm talking about truckers. I'm talking about gas station, grocery store workers. I am talking about those that work in warehouses like Amazon, those that work in logistics like United States Postal Service, UPS, FedEx, DHL, all those other places that have to keep people stopped because they're keeping the lights on for the rest of us to work from home. If you're out and about, don't be a dick to them. Be nice to them, because again, they're making a decision for someone else to be comfortable. Simply put. And also, with that also being said, guys, November 3rd is coming up. It is this week. Like I said before, this podcast is not about telling you who to vote for. It's simply presenting the facts to you to basically inform you, allow you to make up your own mind. The thing about it is, guys, we cannot sit out. The people I'm talking to are the ones that, whether you have voted, if it's great, if you've early voted, that's awesome. At the same time, those who are saying they're not going to vote, you're the ones I want to talk to right now, because it's not a sit out the sidelines time. This is you needing to make a decision. And I hear people say it all the time. Well, these are the choice of candidates we have. If you don't like the candidates that are out there, run for office or start pushing the candidates that you want at the forefront. It's that simple. We should no longer be, it's the lesser of two evils. It's this, that, and the other. There are multiple political parties out there. The only reason you don't hear about them is because Democrats and Republicans are the cash ones. They are the heaviest cash flows out there. There are multiple political parties out there. But if you want candidates that you have feel your values, then you need to push them forward. Or if you feel like you want to run for office, find out how you can. There have been many times I thought about running for office myself here in Tennessee that I was like, I would run for office. Just because, the only way you can affect something is to actually be elected. And I said this before, the way our society changes, it has to change at the local levels. If we change our cities, then we change our towns. If we change our towns, then we change our states. If we change the states, then we can change the nation. But it always has to be from the ground up is where we start. And that's how you actually figure stuff out. But again, for all those that say they're not voting, it's time to get off your ass and vote. Simple and plain. But that being said, guys, like I said, the whole idea of how the Frack We Got Here is to basically inform people. We're not trying to persuade. We're not trying to change minds. We're not trying to tell you who to vote for. We are presenting the evidence in order for you to be informed. Because the thing about this is, uninformed people are where we got to right now. It didn't get us anywhere. It didn't get us anything except a whole lot of mistakes. And I'm not saying the informed don't make mistakes. I'm saying we make less mistakes than uninformed do, because uninformed ones led us down this path. So, again, with that being said, let's do the smart thing and let's just vote. And I'm not saying, and like I said before, I'll sit there and say, yes, I voted for Biden and Kamala. Do I think they're perfect? Absolutely not. But will I hold them to the standards of why I'm voting for them? Yes. And if they can't do it, then we're going to get people in there that can, because that's how democracy works. So, with that being said, guys, thank you all for watching. And if you're watching this on the playback, please comment live. I definitely want to know what you guys think. And if you like what I did, please let me know. If you didn't like what I did, please let me know. I'm just simply trying to make this platform better for everybody to enjoy. And like I said, as we get to Falling Back, which I cannot wait tonight. Oh, that Falling Back is going to be so sweet. Because I am not an early morning person. I actually hate daylight savings time. I think it's kind of a wasted. You know what? We're not going to get into that. That being said, guys, thank you all for watching. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. Happy Halloween. Please stay safe. And like I said before, take care of yourselves and each other. Not to pull a Jerry Springer. But above all else, we going to be all right. Peace.